All right, good evening, and welcome to a very special episode of the Eve Prosper Market Show. We're doing Fanfest review with a very special guest panel. So before we get started, I want to go ahead and introduce our guests. We have Bhock from Capstable.
Hi, everybody.
And Random Boy 50 from Aideron Robotics.
Hey, what's up, guys?
We don't have Ashtarothi tonight. There was a schedule conflict, but we should be hearing more from him later sometime eventually. So let's go ahead and get right into the show stuff. I want to start with just a couple of quick notes. Again, I want to give a shout out to CCP Guard for reaching out to the streamers, and I want to give a huge shout out to CCP Mimic, who has been on a marathon community run for the last few days. So just wanted to give them a quick shout out. So let's start off. We didn't talk about Valkyrie on the first day, but I wanted to give it a few minutes here on the third. Do you guys have any particular thoughts, notes, hype, Valkyrie stuff we've seen over FanFest?
I think Valkyrie looks awesome. For a little pet project that it started out to be, I think it's grown into something very, very cool. I think a lot of it is with competitive in mind. Eve trying to be competitive is one thing. It's not a game that's really designed for, showing the competitive nature of it. Whereas Valkyrie, especially when I was watching the tournament, there was transitions when they would change cameras, all that. And it just was fast. It was a very fast-paced game. It was a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, basically it gets the hype that Dust should have because it's about spaceship. It's a shooting game. It's fast-paced. It's immediate. You get the control. My only problem with it is not with the game itself. It's because it's a VR headset, and my wife is going to kill me if I do that in the house.
Yeah, I agree there that the being peripheral oriented, I'd rather buy an Oculus, even a dev kit, than a new console. But I thought the tournament was actually, I agree, really a cool concept. I think they need to work a lot more on the way that they do views, but the part that was annoying me the whole stream is they didn't announce who the freaking competitors were. They didn't introduce them. They didn't even say at the final keynote, like, oh, here are your guys, Bob and Billy. And
it seems super thrown together. I mean, compared to the other competitions they run, it seems super thrown together, even though they're trying to make it this big thing.
But still, I'm glad they had spectator in mind. I have a lot of hope for it. I can't wait to see the pre-alpha come out. So let's go ahead and move on to the Worlds Collide tournament, because that yacht, so sexy.
Oh my gosh. That was a roller coaster of emotions.
Tanking, it's back, baby. Galante win.
Coming out in the very beginning, damn hero taking. That was beautiful.
That first match was a real nail biter. The Camel Empire kept looking like, yeah, it's a slam dunk. No, just dunk. Just no. Why aren't you winning?
Now that first loss, though, I keep going back and forth. Was it really close, or was it actually a strategic move? A lot of the times, I keep going back to think that they threw it on purpose. I think they threw that first match on purpose just to see, because it allows them to have the upper hand. They know what they played. They can't play it again. So out of those fits, kind of what could be coming next. And, they played one of their stronger setups at first. But it very well, they could have just gotten the upper hand first, and Camel just wasn't ready for it.
Yeah, I was interested to see the Tier 3 destroyers are going to be a real grab bag for the upcoming tournaments. And this was a great show of how they can win and how they can lose. I know that there were some interviews with the Camel Empire afterwards where they were talking about like mistiming between I want to say it was between speed and tank, and that's why they lost their one confessor in, I think it was the second round.
Yeah, that was it. They switched it, and he was still in sharpshooter mode when he got primaried, and he melted.
So I'm a huge fan of those destroyers. I hope we see more of them and less drone meta in the upcoming tournaments. I was actually a little disappointed. I kind of wanted to see more blood taken by the Serenity guys, because they came all the way across. They seemed like a pretty decent teamwork wise. They knew how to fly. We'll have to check and see if they upload the Alliance tournament metadata. It was just I was sort of hoping it'd be a closer fight.
Yeah, again, going back to that first match, I was, in my mind, I was watching it on my big screen TV, and I just sat there and was like, this match could actually be really good. I could be really, because I was almost pleased that we could lose, because I've been watching on Reddit. It was just a total, Camel is going to just blitz it. It's fine. We're not worried about it. And a lot of shit being thrown toward the Chinese server, Serenity. And then when they come out with that first win, I was like, man, it would be real interesting if they kill us.
No, and Camel is a known team, but there's no equivalent in the Chinese server. So the Chinese had the advantage of surprise. They could come up with weird tactics or weird type of gameplay, because playing on the Chinese server is very different.
Yeah, and I'm interested to see if they put out a dev blog about the actual dev hacks they had to do to make the show actually happen, because neither the two servers are not allowed to intermingle at all, and I don't know how they managed. They may have rolled new clone characters for the Chinese guys, or I'm not sure how they managed to do it so that they didn't break their own rules. But it was a cool show, a cool concept. I hope that if they do something like this in the future again, that there's a little bit more rehearsal, because it was kind of like the matches were great, but there was 2 times more like, is it ready yet? Is it ready? Are we ready? Or no, let's just BS some more. Ready now? No, we're not ready. And that kind of made for a terrible flow of an event.
It definitely showed, and I'm speaking from a production standpoint. I deal with a lot of production. It showed that they're doing it in-house. That is a completely in-house production, or at least it very much seemed to be, because there was a lot of times where, you would have audio not matching the video, such as you're seeing 3 people talking at the commentator's desk, and then someone else is talking that doesn't exist on that desk.
Oh yeah, the mic work was terrible.
It definitely shows it. You get those quirky times with the interviews, the player interviews, which those can be kind of endearing, kind of fun. But then when you have something that's supposed to be your main event, that was the headliner for the day. That was Worlds Collide, and you still have these giant gaps of nothing, or mismatched audio, or cameras panning wildly, or even when they were in the game, match 1, about good 2 minutes in, we just kept looking at the same Navitas. We just kept looking at one Navitas. Had no idea what was going on in the rest of the battle. As a production guy, I just sat there cringing kind of the whole time, like, I wish I was there. I wish I could throw some pointers out their way.
Yeah, and it speaks to the nature of Fanfest that this thing was put together with a shoestring and a hope and a prayer of like, okay, well, we got the technical part done, and then we have like 36 hours to hunt down everyone, and like, okay, who's going to be cameraman? And oh wait, we have the schedule conflict, so we're going to talk to commentators 1 and 3, and we'll catch up with number 2. I understand why it was kind of a mess. I was hoping for more hype, and it was kind of like, yeah, matches. Oh, they're talking. I'm going to do something else.
That's kind of weird, because they had thread up day 2. It was not the biggest day. The important things were in day 1 and day 3. So they should have all the people available to do what they were supposed to be doing. And perhaps it was not the correct people that do the usual tournaments that were not here. but that's kind of sad.
I do have to give big props. Was it CCP Garnet? Was that who was the big Viking?
Yeah, Gargant.
I have to give him big props because he was basically thrown out there and said, "Hey, make us a show with nothing."
Yeah, and he was quite a showman, so I do appreciate that.
So I just had to. I have to say something to him, saying, good job on that. Anything out of literally nothing.
So let's go ahead and move on to the day 3 panels. We're going to blitz through a few of them to get to art. So first I wanted to just talk a couple of minutes about the Helping with Newbros talk, because personally, being a data test guy, I was really interested from so one of my favorite YouTube channels out there is Extra Credits, where they go through how do you do game design and talk through all the pieces. And I find that immensely interesting, because then I take it back to work and I'm like, okay, well, how do I do minimum viable product, and how do I use how do I do A/B testing? How can I do that in my everyday stuff? And I thought it was really great how he talked through some of the challenges. I was a little disappointed that he talked so much. It was a lot of recycling from his eVegas talk. I thought the stuff he put out there was pretty good. Do you guys have any sections on the NPE notes that you guys wanted to share?
No, it was really a lot of things that we heard about Vegas or we read about the dev blogs. Not a lot of very, very new things, and everything is expected. We have to roll it out on live and see what happens and iterate on it. So it's a good thing because it tells us what we're going to have on live, but they need to iterate after a few months.
Well, and I thought the telling thing was that was really him getting out there and walking through the failures that they had. So like one of the things he showed was this overlay that they were all super pleased with themselves about. They were all patting themselves on the back. And then they brought in completely green players who it was of zero value to. And it was really great to see that humility from CCP, where they were like, oh, this isn't working at all. Let's try something different. Let's go. He walked through a bunch of, and I really should have grabbed these slides, but he walked through like this picture of, so Eve is this big arrow, and the tutorial originally was this little itty bitty linear arrow, and it kind of sucked. And then they're like, well, what if we just made it wider, and then people would get lost running circles around that and not really getting outside the arrow in his little visualization. And if you are an aspiring game dev, I think it was a really great talk that you should go sit down with, even if you've seen some of the parts already. Random, do you have any pieces to add on there?
Yeah, I was going to say, going back to what you were saying about them sharing their failures. CCP doesn't do that very much, and most companies don't. But it was very interesting just to show that, hey, we did a lot of work toward this, and this is, and they seemed very proud of the new player experience, which I think they very much should. The lifeblood is the newbies of this game. We can all kind of turn into bitter vets, and then well, the game's dead. So having this new blood come in is great, and having them have a vehicle to really take them and be successful with it, I'm all for it, and I think that they're really trying to push forward in it.
The interesting part, I liked how he started the show with who thinks that suicide ganking is driving people away, and he came out with this stat that they only lose 1% because of 1% of losses are attributable to suicide ganking kind of activities, and that people who get in fights, who do PvP, are way higher. People who die play longer was the quote he put out there. So it was interesting to I think the theme to bring back was that we have these assumptions that we've played for years or they've developed for years, and they're like, oh no, Eve works this way, and then they look at the data and they're like, oh no it doesn't. This, like, the suicide ganking thing is just a very loud, very tiny minority. It's the people who get in and are like, oh well, I have nothing to do. I didn't get social, and Eve is a terrible one-player game.
Yeah, but I think that most people that come into Eve know about how bad Eve and how nasty the players Eve, and perhaps when they are in the game, we discover that we are not that bad. The outside advertisement is not. We're not ruthless killers that just live on the blood of newbies. If it was 1 year ago, yes. 1 year ago, 2 years ago, the environment for newbies was way harsher than it is now. Now you get help if you ask for help. Now you get information if you ask for information. People are not just going to kill you just to piss you off and make you leave. There's a perception about newcomers and Newbros that completely changed. We are much nicer to people.
Well, and that's actually one of the points that pisses me off about other MMOs is that I remember I started Eve and WoW at the same time with different groups of friends, like literally within weeks of each other. And my friends were on this PvP server, and if you've played an MMO PvP server, as you go through the leveling zones, there's guys who are 2 or 3 level brackets ahead of you that come back and just camp you and teabag your corpse and are just there to sort of be like, this happened to me and I'm going to continue being a jerk. And it takes away from the experience because like I enjoyed other pieces of the PvP puzzle from WoW because the players were far more competent. And then I'd be like, well, except that grinding takes 5 times longer because I have to sit there and wait for some guy to get shooed away by somebody else's max level character. And that is so much less of a problem. I mean, okay, so there are still people who prey on the blood of the innocent. That I know tons of industrialists who will talk your ear off about, oh man, we've been in perma war and we can't do our thing and cry into our beers. But like when it comes to being a newbie and getting through your first 6 months, it's really not that bad as long as you don't do it alone.
Right. Eve is a social game. Eve needs to be played socially, and I think that's one thing that the new player experience needs to push is to get social. I think that's where this game lives and dies.
All right, let's move on to the next quick one. The team security talk was interesting. The team security talks tend to be a little bit on the dry side. I mean, the guys are interesting, and I really want to get a beer with them and really sort of understand the hows behind it rather than the exact things like, oh, well, what if you cross-reference this thing and that thing and whatever. It was also interesting. They had a player presenter, Noisy Gamer, who you may have heard on the Capstable CSM roundtables. I was really pleased to see his presentation in there, sort of talking about, does it work? And yes, it does. And it was really great to see a player at that at that sort of level giving a presentation next to the devs.
And Noisy is someone that has been fighting against bots and gold farming and gold sellers throughout not only Eve, but other MMOs. Is really known about that, and he's been doing analysis for years. One thing that many people missed in the presentation when I talk about it is that at one time they talk about the reasons why people get banned. And between 2013, there were 20% of people banned for modification of a client, and 2014, only 2%. And the devs listed something in a small sentence that many people missed, is that in 2013, CCP had a detection in the client installed on our computers, checking if a client was modified. And that's something they completely removed since 2014. Since 2014, they only do detection of behavior from the backend, crunching numbers and big data to find out who are the culprits and what are they doing and where they're trying to hide the money. And you cannot hide the money. They have an audit trail on everything, and they've been banning even trial accounts that were trying to be created just to sort out the money and move it around.
Well, yeah, and that was the interesting part that I clicked onto, was that we saw over the last 3 or 4 months that trial accounts have become far more generous. The skill restrictions have become less. The activity restrictions have become less. I was personally worried that letting trial accounts do PI was going to crash those markets, and well, it hasn't, but increased the default trial to 30 days, and Team Security got up and in no uncertain terms said, we signed off on it because we can catch you.
No, that means they are so confident about catching all the people that use trial accounts to bot and everything like that, that they're good, which is, yeah, you want to try to use a trial account to create a 50-man procure fleet to mine? Yeah, we're going to catch your money, and you're going to catch your main account, and we're going to kill and loot all your possessions on your 150 million SP character with his Titan and all that crap. Yeah, thanks. Give us all your monies.
It was great. I'm gonna have to see if I can get some of the slides about what they actually banned. It was really, there's a lot of the last part I want to talk about with the last few minutes we have here is that I thought I was a little annoyed that they had to do it, but the rules lawyering right at the start about, all right, guys, this is multiplexing, this is multi-boxing, these are what's allowed, these are what are not allowed. You know, we did a dev blog about this. I don't know why you think you guys are witty or something, because we thought about all of your little hacks. You know, if you think it's some sort of life hack, we think it's a real hack, and the EULA hasn't changed. We will find you. We will kill you.
Yeah, who was it that came out a while back that said, you know, it was showing some way of using IS Boxer to still do basically the same thing without multiplexing. It's funny because it was touted like, almost like they've beat the system. Well, if you've beat the system, you're still in the wrong. You're going to get caught in that end.
Yeah, because it doesn't matter whatever tool you're using. If you're beating the system, that means you're doing something that is going to get detected. It's a problem of behavior. And what you're going to do, you're going to get detected, and everything is going to be flagged and cancelled at the same time. Not the only account that you have where you're voting. Everything.
And also, just one more bot group that I thought was interesting they touched on was market botting was a spot that they said they're spending more focus on, if you're reading between the lines. I thought it was interesting. I would have thought that catching market bots would be relatively trivial, that there's so many inputs you can put per day, per hour. I know that there are ways to hack the lockout systems, but like, you know, if you're updating an order, you're updating 4 orders a minute, every minute, 18 hours a day, you are a robot, you are not a human. I'm interested to see if they publish any more big data on that as a follow-up, because it sounds like the sort of theme from Team Security over the last 6 months has been, we're not changing the EULA, we're just getting much better at enforcing it.
One thing with market bots is that you're also talking about much more money than a mining bot. Mining bot, the investment in-game is not very. When you do a market bot, your goal is to invest a lot of ISK and make it roll and make a percentage on each transaction. It's not a big percentage. You need a lot of ISK. So if you get caught, you lose way more. So perhaps the deterrent is way higher.
All right, and let's go ahead and move on to the art panel. The presentation was a lot of ooh and ah, not a lot of substance and dates, because that's the way the art team tends to work. Let's go ahead. Some new ship redesigns. The Caracal. I don't have slides for the Chimera, but I thought it was interesting. They were talking about the Chimera redesign being a test bed for new structures, which I thought was an interesting point. Do you guys have anything from the art panels you particularly enjoyed?
So the new models look more racy and ET, and I think they're redesigning to add to work also with a V5 shader. They need to redo the surface to look more aggressive. They cannot be as round and rolled as they used to be. So they're making more aggressive ships and more aggressive designs with different textures and materials, and they're doing the good way. The 2 new tech-free destroyers, yeah, whatever. Okay. sure. New design, new nice, moving pieces, whatever. It's just not big. The new explosion, yeah, great news. After that, post shield, not really interested in post shield because I thought they were disappearing anyway.
Yeah, I was similarly wondering about the post shields. I do adore the new explosions because there is nothing better than a satisfying explosion when you catch up with someone and finally kill them. But the pos shield, I love the design because I frankly hate the current design because I can never tell if I'm in or out of the damn pos bubble, and it catches my heart, and my heart skips a beat when I'm in a jump freighter, and I'm like, am I still inside the shield? And I have to like look around, like, okay, we're still inside the shield, thank God. So I thought I was a little disappointed that CCP Darwin didn't have more mic time because when he talks about like the V5++ and the art pipeline and the technical support they have to do to go from an artist rendition to an actual release, his stuff is super interesting. And if you're interested in that, I invite you to go listen to the Hydrostatic podcast. We did an interview with him a month or so ago, and it was way better than the art panel technical side, in my opinion.
Yeah, my big problem with that is that I often play in nullsec, and often I have to play in potato mode because if I use the full blown out texture skins, high resolution, and all that, if I meet 20 people, my computer freezes and I'm dead before it's end.
Yeah, thankfully with faction warfare, the fights don't get too big, so we can still keep the shiny up.
Right, get to stay nice and pretty with the 5 people that are on field.
Yeah, I think that's why Marcel has us staying in faction warfare, is that he doesn't want to tax his computer too hard. So, with the art stuff out of the way and the quick panels that were that we could do quickly out of the way, let's get on to the real meat and potatoes here. The structures talk was wow. There was a lot, and they already released a dev blog about it. So let's start just going into it.
I love it. I love every bit of it because when I started this game and I knew that they were player-owned stations and posses or whatever, my mind, not knowing what they were, my mind raced to thinking all these ideas. And when I found out what they were, it was almost like a letdown. Like, okay, well, it's just a stick that floats around a moon, and that's about it. And so when I see these things come out, I go, that's what I was looking for. That's the little niche that I was, looking for, because it allows for such customization, and you're not locked to a single place. You could just put that thing anywhere. So then you have these little hidey holes all around, and you could spread it out or whatever. You have these hidey holes and little systems that, for me doing PvP, like, oh, hey, I'm encountering a bit of resistance here. How do I ship up, or how do I change out my fit to make it work? Well, I just go bounce to my whatever, and now I'm refitted and ready to go.
Yeah, and that was one of the main goals that we wanted for Sov, which is multiplying the points and locations where you can have fights or activities, not only one outpost and a few staging bosses eventually, but if you can have stocks of ships at different locations, you can refit pretty easily. But I'm really interested in the mining structure and what you can do with it, because it's going to change the game.
The talk was really interesting, and they gave a lot of details about the development path. And the first piece we're going to go ahead and touch on is, I know, Bhock, you brought up in the last show, you were worried about what was going to happen to the old structures. And I mean, I hate to have hand waved it away, but it was like, well, I'm sure they'll do good by it. Worrying about it is kind of secondary to the vision part. And he actually put out a bit of a cartoon of a roadmap, which some of it is interesting. Some of it I think is going to have to change. Bhock, do you have any particular points on the rollout?
So my main problem with the rollout is first there's the issue with Outpost, because Outpost, they're going to stay. They're actually going to still be indestructible, according to what, unless we change it later on, but seems like they're going to still be indestructible. They want to give us the new structures, and after that we have a grace period, but as day one of a grace period, they already say, oh, we're removing your bonuses to push you. Give us some lead time, thanks. Because I have a lot of pauses. I have a lot of things which are floating in space. If I have to create mining stations, goo pauses, industry research, unless I know months in advance and I can build them in advance to be able to switch them on day one, it's going to take me forever.
That's a good point. I would counter, even though I'm totally on your side about please bro, my POS, is that the bonuses we're getting at a POS are 2% ME and 25% TE. So it's important to really, if you're min-maxing your margins, but if everyone loses it at the same time, you end up the penalty over time, the amount of actual extra wastage done is kind of small potatoes once you start looking at like a 3-month view. It's going to look like 2 to 4 weeks of things being more expensive, I think, and then as the structures actually get out there, we should be better. Now, I'm hoping that they do what they've teased about the Entosis link, that they said, okay, well, we're going to release the blueprint in like April, and then the module actually becomes functional in June. And I'm hoping that we see something similar, that, okay, well, we're releasing the blueprint, the utilities are out on Singularity if you want to make sure you build the right pieces and they go in the right order. And then the next 6-week release, they're live, and you're not starting from -1.
Yeah, because those BPOs, I'm pretty sure they're going to be pretty long to research.
Well, but that's always the release. The thing about release is that first few weeks of any item is like, do I build at ME0? Do I research to like ME3, build a bunch to pay off the blueprint, and then research it to 10? I mean, that's always been the release game.
Yeah, but if meanwhile you're losing 4% refining, 2% manufacturing, and a few percent here and there, it's just that's a lot, which is okay. But if they give us the BPOs on day one of a release and the grace period, we're going to be scrambling and paying a lot of money just to try to switch things too fast. I want some lead time just to be able to research and queue up whatever I need.
So the next part I wanted to get onto was sizes have always been important. I talked a lot in the last show about how much size was the thing that got me hooked on the game, and as much as the slide he put up was kind of not well formatted, but the sort of idea of how big they want things to be, where they want a general vision was kind of interesting.
Those XL outposts are going to be huge.
And I hope they're all big and sprawly, because the tall towers that we've been seeing as the Jove ones are neat and they're big, but I have a special place in my heart for the Caldari outpost.
No, but that's something that always annoyed me, that Starbase, when you have a large post right now, and with those force field, you're bigger than an outpost, which is kind of very weird.
And then the next part he started talking about was the structure fitting, since we're going away from having to anchor little bits and bobs, and oh, thank God, for sure. I'm still a little worried about the actual mechanics and pieces about the structure fitting. He was really vague about it's going to be a lot like ships. And not a lot extra beyond that. There's some information in the following slides, but I like the concept. I want it to work. I have my fingers crossed, but I don't know. I have some worry.
Yeah, I want to figure out how it actually gets placed in space. That's my biggest thing.
Yeah, that's my biggest question, which is what is minimum distance between items? Because you could create a Death Star of stations, which are impossible to shoot because you're going to wipe out whatever comes even close to that cluster of stations.
Yeah, and the stuff he was showing looked like, I'm always worried about the actual cost of these kind of things. Like we usually talk about the base cost of like a tower being the stick, and then all the other modules are sort of trivial in cost, and I hate that from a investment side where I really want to be able to spend as much or more without going into faction stuff on the stuff that goes on the base module than just the base module.
No, and one of the things that really bothered me was they were talking about the fuel use. We say, oh, as long as you don't have those service slots running, you don't use fuel. That means we're going to get kind of bosses placed everywhere with weapons and warp disruptors and services without service slots, because guns are free. Warp scramblers are free. Refitting is free. No, refitting is a service slot. But everything else is... The combat stations are basically fuel without fuel.
Yeah, and the vision on fuel, I'm still 50-50, same as you, that it makes sense from a like. So what I want is that I still want a base rate, right? I still want you got to keep the reactors running. It costs like a 25% base load. And then as you actually use it, as you're a producer, for instance, and as you insert more and more jobs, you start ramping that up to the 100% level. And as jobs complete, well, now I don't have to keep that factory line running. We can turn off that 10% or whatever, and you could have more of a continuum. I would really love to see that, so that as you run out of fuel, if you leave the game and you go on vacation and you don't fuel your stuff, that some guy can just come up and be like, oh, everything is off. The life support, the defenses, the reactors, the services. Well, the shields are down. Let's just blow it up.
Yes and no, because they're trying from that size of structures to do something, which is if it's small or medium, you can shoot it out. It's not that much people. If you're large, usually it's an entosis. And if it's extra large, we talk about entosis plus site. So I don't know what is entosis plus site. So we have really different dynamics about cleaning up that clutter. But the ISEC is going to be, I'm sure people are going to shoot that just for the pleasure of cleaning up that crap in ISEC.
My worry is that they're using ISK as the balance beam for this. So like you'd say, okay, well, yeah, you can get a large structure and that's going to be like 10 billion or 5 billion or whatever that. And extra large, well, that's going to be like an outpost. We're talking 50 billion or 80 billion. ISK is not a balancing beam. It is functionally infinite for anyone who wants to have it. And the only other balance would be to say that, well, production times mean that you have to spend a month making a large or something like that. And even that we've seen is not enough to stop super proliferation. So I'm hoping that there is some sort of that there is some sort of break on the larger stuff that's harder to get rid of, that's more than just how much money do you have.
Yeah, because we always said, oh, we want everything to be destructible. So yeah, but if you do entosis, you don't destroy it, which is okay. So it's not destroyed. So anything which is larger, extra large, is never going to disappear. It's going to switch ends. That's kind of weird.
Yeah, and his vision for destructibles was kind of annoying in that, well, yeah, you can destroy it and there'll be a wreck, but then only the owner can salvage it. That's so not Eve.
Right. Once it blows up, it's everyone's game.
I'm more than happy to make like an extra large structure require like 100 man hours worth of salvaging time. Like you only get it in small pieces, and like you have to clean up the whole thing by hundreds of modules or something. And I'm fine with that, because then you start talking about an actual time sink, that like the owners have the passwords and they can get out the stuff quickly from a unified inventory, but the aggressors, well, they any other Yahoo can just start salvaging it and rolling the dice.
And they were saying that it's only an option. They had another option, which is kind of creating small containers and spread it all around the place, with giving the location of their own container to the people that own it. I think they don't know exactly what they're going to do about it. They have that vision of destroying everything, but from their slides, it's just a vision. It's not in the mechanics that they prepare for those bosses, and that's something they're going to have to think about later on. It's an iteration, which is okay, whatever. But we have to think about it, because it's going to change a lot of things. If it's destructible, anybody can go through it and just salvage it, the markets are never going to be big enough, because you can lose a crap lot of money. GE market in cash for Brave, it's 800 billion. That station would be blown out the day after the patch just for looting.
All right, let's start walking through the structure classes. We're going to start with my personal favorites, assembly arrays. I've always been a fan of making your own factory. The pieces are still pretty fluid. I'm hoping so. When Krios came, we lost something in production that I really thought was valuable, like a valuable game mechanic, and that was when slots went away, you didn't need redundant factory space anymore. So professionally, real life, I work in a manufacturing site where, you know, each tool that we have, yeah, it adds parallelism so we can test more stuff. But each of those boxes is $1 million. So I can't just go out. I have to go to my bosses and be like, no, we really need a 13th system. And they have to go, do you need it $1 million badly? And I'm like, let me get back to you. Like it's a huge investment, and there's all of this accounting that goes along with it. And though I don't want that immensely high bar of a production site, I really want people to think, okay, well, I'm one guy and I'm building bombers, so I only need this much, a little bit. But I'm an industry corp, and we have 10 people working 24/7, churning out 100 billion a month in hardware. Well, I want them to have to put down a bunch of change to actually make that operation work.
So one thing that I really want to have happen, it would be awesome with assembly arrays, is what if, and this is a what if they removed the assembly functions, the manufacturing functions in all of the NPC stations, and the only way you were able to do this was that, kind of like Poco's, if people had their POSs up in system, they could open them up to the public. So then you have these people coming in and, say, competitively marketing their outposts for, you know, people that don't want to have the outposts produce in.
So you still need to make sure there's a bar for the brand newbies to try something, and 2, you have to give a legitimate spot for BPO to shelter BPOs, because as much as raiders want to destroy every capital BPO or every Tech 2 BPO or whatever your favorite BPO to hate is, as a builder, I have put a lot of self-worth into that library, and you know, the current mechanic of, if I don't want to risk it, I can copy it, is an okay trade-off. So I'm paying an extra bit to get the copy. I'm paying extra time to get that copy. But but by doing that, I'm chipping in to trade off that risk for that extra reward. Without both a newbie starting point to just get your feet wet and a way to actually guarantee protection of your BPOs to anyone who's sane, it really is a non-starter.
And there's a big problem on security also. You need to separate inventories of people. You need to make them safe and hope they manage and all that correctly this time for the assemblies, because you cannot share POSes right now. And if the manufacturing slots disappear and outposts, it's going to be horrible. I have one last remark. If you check on that assembly array, the assembly platform, which is the medium one, doesn't have a service slot. I thought the service slot was what you were defining the structure for with your assembly lines. So if assembly array, the medium one, doesn't have an assembly line, what is it used for?
Yeah, and the assembly platform being destructible in and of itself, like I'm imagining trying to produce inside one of those mobile hangar units, whatever they're called, and thinking, okay, so I have a build that takes 3 days, right? Something that takes maybe 3 days to get through. And I'm just going to have that out in space where some Yahoo can shoot it and kill it in 12 hours after a cooldown, or 36 hours with a cooldown. That's I'll never use it. It's completely useless to me. And if you start trying to make my problem is that for people for producers to buy into a destructible factory, the amount of security you have to give them to make it actually used, to make it more than just some Yahoo being like, I think this is what I should do, to get some real professional to put some real cash on the line, you have to give them a certain amount of security that they can, as long as I'm active, as long as I know, I'm working with the people I work with to manage rights, as long as I am keeping it fueled, as long as I am practicing safe activity to work with it, I should be able to use that. And I'm more than happy to risk like my POSes as it is right now, because, well, you declare war on me in a high-sec POS, well, that gives me 24 hours to empty the raw materials out. I may have to eat the jobs that are in the line, which is my own fault. That's a risk I have to take. But my BPOs are safe at the end of the day. So you might have cost me $1 billion-isk in POS mods and maybe another 5 in jobs if I'm really active. But it's because it was a play choice more than just than just putting me in front of the Huns and making it so that I get slaughtered for their content.
Yeah, and it goes back also to the problem of what is going to be the minimum distance between those all those structures, between the small structures, the medium structures, the large structures. Because you could imagine if for mediums to have a cluster of medium assembly platforms for your corporations, each individual having its own. And if they are in range of each other, they're going to cross-defend each other, which is okay, why not? But it causes another problem, which is if you put it in ISEC and you declare war to your neighbor, your assembly platform is going to shoot your neighbor's platform? I don't know.
Yeah, it's going to take... There's going to have to be a lot more information and a lot more than just vision to make this happen. So moving from, we can keep talking industry, but I want to start talking about the research labs. I found it interesting that they were going to break out manufacturing and research into independent operations. I've always thought of them as you use them at the same time. They're just two different resources that you have access to. But the really big vision here is that we're going to start talking about data core spawning, which breaks a bottleneck from nullsec, in that you'd have to go to highsec to get your data cores. So I'm actually pretty happy about that idea.
I still find curious that they don't have a medium-sized one. So you have a large, which is going to be for Corp, and an extra large, which is for Alliance. So you have nothing to do research lab for individuals.
As long as we have station stuff, I'm kind of okay with them paying a big penalty. And again, if you put something in that medium tier that is destructible, no one's going to put a BPO into it to do the 30 days of research it requires to get like that 10th point for a lot of the blueprints.
Yeah, and I'm not also a big fan of that data core spawning. It's good that we think about finally the problem of finding data cores in nullsec. That's good. But spawning, they need to explain what it is. Because if it's like the research points that you have in ISEC, it's kind of crap. If it's about finding loots in let's say relic site or data sites and use them to create data cores, okay, why not? I want something active, not simply, or I create a job in the data core spawning assembly and I just loot the data cores when we're finished.
So I would kind of, if I were allowed Grand Division, I would like to see it as a job. So you need to have some sort of consumable. I don't know where you'd want that consumable to come from, but I'd like to see, like, okay, I have take the idea from the R&D agents, and say that, okay, well, I can commit 5 of my research slots to spawning the data cores I need. But then that means that I can only do copying, research, and industry, all the other research tasks on the remaining 5 or 6 slots. Because I do like the idea of using slots to sort of use up a bunch of your research time, because I have a hard time believing that people are really time capped on a lot of their research slots.
I doubt they are, and I'm personally not at all, and I use a lot of research. I'm more capped on my manufacturing side of it.
Yeah, so I'd like to see this take up a big chunk of your research hours, so that you'd actually have to say, okay, well, if I'm only going to use one character, I can commit 2 slots to data core spawning, and then 1 slot to copying, and then the remaining slots to invention. Or I can even get a little more generous with it and say, okay, well, I'm going to get enough data cores to be self-sufficient, but I'm going to tank my actual invention rate so that the actual invention product becomes more valuable, because right now it's just worth the cost of data cores and decryptors that you put in. So I'm hoping that would be the vision I would want to see.
And I would want also a rethinking about decryptors, because they're kind of weird right now. Everything changed in Creus, but not the decryptors.
Yeah, with the ME scales and the TE scales the way they are, we could devote an entire show to what we want to see industry change to.
Yeah, I'm real curious to see what they do. I want to know, and of course everyone else, I guess, want to know. It's not a singular thing. It's when are these things going to start coming out, and which ones are going to be first?
No, and especially what options they're going to open on with the rigs on those structures. It can be extremely interesting, and depending on the price and the materials that you need to make those and the rigs, it can be really a good game, or it can be simply a ISK sink.
So moving down the line to the market office hubs, this one was another really interesting one. So if you haven't lived in nullsec in an outpost, there are the 4 flavors, and they're very specifically dedicated to what they do, and they're pretty awful at what they don't do. So you have everyone basing out of a Galente office hub, so that there's enough offices for all of the corps to manage their assets, and then you might have one Caldari one nearby so that you can do some research, but I don't see many of those. And you might have you might have some of the reprocessing and factory systems next to each other, but you only get one per system. I thought that this was actually one of my more interesting ones in his presentation. That I thought it was interesting. They're thinking about adding mechanics so that we can automate SRP with a corporate insurance program, which I thought was rather interesting. I'm interested to see what they really want to do to make that happen.
No, that's one of the automations that we need to provide for the corporation tools. SRP is a huge org in man hours that you need to go through the kill mails and the fleets, and check if the SRP, if the fleet is correct or not, if it's accepted, if the fleet was SRP'd. It's just, if you can automate that under an insurance which is managed by the corporation or the alliance, it's perfect. And I would go even farther, which is provide an auto SRP for specific fights, which is you enter a fleet and with your alliance, and you have an option to insure through your alliance specifically for that fight.
The piece that has me worried, though, is that after watching nullsec SRP programs and the amount of validation they ask for before they pay out, so like, oh, you have to get your kill mail, and if you're in goons, you got to make sure you were on a PAP link. Like it's about as hard as getting real insurance paid out. I have a hard time believing that CCP is really going to hand over enough of the keys and build a brand new service that's that is to a point of quality that nullsec will take it over. But I do believe that with a relatively simple program, you can say, okay, well, if these are insured contracts, for instance, if you buy one of these contracts and you lose the ship in a PvP engagement that isn't that in any PvP engagement, maybe add a where in space filter to that. Then you will either be granted your cash back or you will be given a voucher for that contract again or something like that. That makes some amount of sense. But to get up to the point where like CFC Fountain War was I could not get a frickin' reimbursement for any of the fleets I was in.
It's just way too much information needed, way too much man hours to go through it. And just at one time, many people simply don't do their own SRP, their personal one, and just say, okay, I'm going to mine or I'm going to kill a few extra mobs and not even bother with the SRP unless it's really something valuable.
The other piece that I thought that I'm not sure if I should take contention with or not, I'm still on the fence, was he wants to add interbus shipping for small freight. And the sort of things that I vision interbus freight being really good for, I kind of want to see like I want to see a different solution. So interbus freight kind of makes sense if you needed blueprints, if you needed skills, if you needed maybe ammo, stuff. Let's say that the cap is at 1,000 meters cubed per contract. The sort of things that I would want from that, I either want to go put it into a player shipper already. So if I'm buying ammo, I might as well buy ships and all the other stuff that goes in them. And I'd rather see the dust system for skills, to be honest.
I think it's a bad idea, even in ISEC. It's just so weird. It's not that it's weird. Almost all the other MMOs, you have some kind of post office where you can ship stuff. So if this is not an exception, completely is different. It's a different way. Everything has to be moved, and many players don't understand that when they're coming. Newcomers that just ask, "Where's the post office? Why can I not attach an item in my mail that I send to someone else?" So it's appealing for the newcomers, but the people like us that have been playing for a long time, we're used to carry stuff around. We're used to go once a week to a market and take an interceptor or covert ops or whatever and just buy or contract shipping and just wait. It's part of a game. Logistics is extremely important. It shouldn't be virtualized or it should be simple. Even if it's a freaking interbus that can be shot, and which makes it completely useless in nullsec. And they say, oh, you have to control your system. You do not control systems in nullsec. That's thinking that is just false, completely false. You will always have cloaky campers. You will always have people coming and shooting everything and intercepting those shipments. If it's Tech 1 orders, you don't need much to shoot them and just enjoy the tears.
Yeah, and that's actually another part of the point that was that's kind of putting a bad taste in my mouth, is that if you make them you have to make them destructible to make it not a broken system. There's no decent way to defend them, because there's no way knowing, like, you can't go and be like, oh, well, I have to go defend my shipping contract. It's finally gone out. Be right back. And it takes away a huge part of the player economy is freight. And it's a huge bottleneck, and it's the number one problem to solve when you are talking about combat operations. Is getting enough monkeys with guns is the easy part. Getting all of those monkeys their guns is the hard part. And so if this, I'd like to hear some more vision about where they think interbus freight goes in. And if it's things like things you'd already want to buy from NPCs, like BPOs or skills, or maybe implants, like really little things, maybe we need to talk about a different way to distribute those. Maybe okay, not implants, but like maybe we need to make blueprints soulbound at some level. Maybe we need to add the dust. Yeah, maybe we need to make the dust. We need to take the dust skill system and just say, I send so much ISK out and skill appears in my brain. I would rather see that than see this sort of half thought out price ceiling on Red Frog. So let's get on to Bhock's probably favorite part is the drilling platform. I'm interested to see again the exact scope of these, because it sounds a little too good to be true. Bhock, did you have some points on the mining platform you wanted to touch on?
Oh yes, I have so many points. So first, there's no medium. I thought there would be a medium, just some deployables you put at the belt level, either to defend your miners or to provide local boost or something. I know it's kind of a role of the capital industrials, but having a deployable, a medium, which is the personal one, the kind of group one that you deploy, you move around, and with your operation, that would be a must. Second problem, the large, which is the equivalent of FOSS. That means we're going to have to replace the Moongoo and or the PI, because logically the PI should be done through those large structures. Do we need one by moon? Do we need one by system from which we can operate all the moons and all the planets of the system? It's just a lot of questions. And the extra large, yeah, for this one, it's going to be the one replacing the Amar stations. So it's going to exist. There are going to be a few of them. And I fully understand that they're going to be here, but the cost is going to surely be prohibitive. So most people are going to only have the large, because there's no medium, and the extra large is going to be extremely rare. So unless they make a structure that can do almost everything, which I doubt, we have one choice, and one choice is no choice.
Yeah, so I have some hope that by putting the Moongoo specifically in the crosshairs of the drilling platform, that we start to talk about fixing the Moongoo stalemate that you're so fond of ranting about. And I won't stop you, because I'm just as ready to rant about it myself. I have some hopes and some dreams, but they sort of gave this, like, his presentation was like, oh no, they'll be really cool, something mining, and there'll be, wastage clouds that you'll need people to come clean up. Like, it sounded more pie in the sky than actual reality, and I'd love to pick some brains to figure out if there's a more concrete vision, because this is actually the first thing I would want out of the structure system is the extinction of the moon mining POS, the moon reacting POS, and a complete overhaul of that system all in one big swoop that really makes that system more dynamic. Like if you wanted us one thing by the end of the year, I would want the drilling platforms, because that will turn nullsec on its head far more than the SOV changes will.
Yeah, because as we stated before, SOV is worthless. SOV is absolutely worth absolutely nothing. Who controls the moon, and the moon who controls the income coming from null, and who controls the income controls null. So those drilling platforms are really about who's going to be able to mine the resources, whether it's in asteroid belts, in planets, in POSes, in moons, and all the goo. So that's about controlling the income. I would have loved to see more player action about controlling that income and putting work and active work in it. And I'm annoyed to only have one structure, which is the large one, which is the equivalent of the current POS. And I'm a lot annoyed about the current cost of POSes, and what are we going to do with them? Refine them? Switch them? Replace? An exchange program?
Maybe they'll bring back the project from the Blue Loot thing, and we can trade them in. Again, I know that there's a lot of money tied up in POS all around the universe, and the honest truth, personally, is that I'm willing to eat the 2 or 3 billion I have in POS equipment if it means that the nullsec picture actually becomes a true, honest to God clusterfuck. Because I can make that money back way easy if CFC, NC, and PL are all grinding against each other because the moon picture changed overnight.
Yeah, and that also, we also need to think about what all that mean to wormhole, because we have no clue what is going to be allowed. So I think that in wormholes there will be allowed for the small, medium, and the large, and not the extra large. So that means wormhole will be exactly on par with nullsec, except a few extra large stations. So it's kind of very weird, the vision they want, unless they want to restrict specific modules, specific rigs to the case space. And how it's going to react with ISEC.
Sorry, your wormhole point is a really good one, because so the new structures are a response to death to POS bubbles, and if you're right, which I don't doubt you would be, that extra large wouldn't be allowed in wormhole, that we then lose the ability to have a safe base of operations when things get too hot, because honestly you shouldn't have to fight, right? There's no reason that somebody should just be able to come through with their 100-man fleet, kill you, and laugh all the way to the bank. If you're doing your job right, you should be able to decide, oh no, that's a bad fight, I'm not taking it. And the large ones none of the large structures have docking available, and none of the structures have shields. So where do you run to beyond safe jumping or just logging out?
Makes me wonder if that's going to be one of those service modules that they talk about, is force field bubble.
Yeah, because if you check all the structures, all of them, if you want to dock, you need an extra large. So that means there's no more docking at all. There's only anchoring and the mooring in wormhole space.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point, and I'm hoping that Mr. Corbex is up in their stuff, trying to tell them how bad this idea could be. So, anything else you wanted to talk about with the drilling platform? Any other comments on that?
No, as long as we don't know what CCP wants to do with income and the income revenue and the problem of occupancy and income for the players, alliances, and corporations, they need to provide all of that part of the vision. And I hope it it's not part of section 6 or 7. Otherwise, we'll have structures without the vision that goes with them, which is going to be extremely weird. Everything is linked to those drilling platforms, the income, the goo. It's going to be the biggest of all those structures and what they want to do with them.
All right. Now, this one's my personal favorite to pick on was the Observatory Arrays. They sound like, so there's some pieces there that sound really cool, and I'm all for getting into, especially the NPC age, the player tracking, moving to something they control, and the cloak pinpointing ideas that they're batting around. Those all sound great. My problem is that the intelligence subterfuge fight, I have a hard time. So I know a couple of years ago, I want to say back when Dust launched, there was this vision that you'd be in your captain's quarters with various other avatars of your like alliance leadership, and you'd be looking over a 3D map, and you'd be playing Risk essentially on that 3D map. And I get sort of where Observatory Arrays put into that vision, but we haven't seen any pieces of that actually make it to the game, and that amount of subterfuge, good bad intel has me a little bit worried because, well, right now, if you want to talk about kills, well, you can get them on a 15-minute delay through zKillboard. There's an API to do it. Do you make those APIs lag even further? Do you make those APIs lie to you just like the game client does? Do you add new APIs that are Crest authenticated that tie into this service? Like there's a whole bunch of like, oh, that's a really good idea, and then you think about it and you say, well, but it doesn't really actually fit anywhere in the vision, in the current meta that we don't already have solutions for.
What if like for system API, like system API calls, this had to be up? So then if like an observatory array went down or something like that, API calls coming from that just nulled out.
Yeah, but how do you do SRP with that, and how do you do information? It's a lot of bad vibes. There's a good thing. There's a good few things that can be done in intelligence gathering and intelligence siding, but I'm pretty sure those structures are going to be simply spawned, and you're going to have 20 of them by system, and who cares? It's just we're going to be to a new level, which is going to be the same one everywhere, because everybody is going to have the same amount, which is going to be whatever maximum is by system.
Yeah, and I guess it does make sense from a regional or constellation sort of security when you're talking about if you're doing ISK making and you're in the intel channels watching for people to come through the map, you might want something that through these observational arrays would say, oh no, actually I got a ping that thing is 5 jumps out, or that they have put down their own they've intosised out one further down the chain, and now they can get much closer than they could before, so that we don't have to rely on player intel channels. That might be something useful. That might provide some amount of useful gameplay, but like the idea of, oh well, you could see where the fights are, and you could then lie about where the fights are. And I'm like, yeah, but then what do you do about zKillboard? Because zKillboard has all that data, and if you're willing to crunch on it, I don't want you to make zKillboard data wrong. That would be tremendously bad.
Like I said, I like the idea of it just API calls get nulled out. I think that would be an interesting way. Because I could just see it now, like, you know, if this person's sitting there staring at a board on a web page or something like that, just monitoring your systems, and then all of a sudden your systems start going black or something like that. They kind of like an impending doom, like, oh, what happened in this system?
Yeah, actually, if it can be used as a ratter safety, anti-safety sort of thing, I would really love to see that, because death to bots. But and I love the idea of sort of being able to send out anti-cloaking pulses that might do some work against AFK cloaking. But again, it's kind of like it's again half-baked, and I'm kind of worried.
I like what in chat Z-Reds, whatever, the Z-Red guy said, is linking them with gates. That would be kind of like almost like if you're, it would be interesting is if it's linked and someone jumps through, it announces it, or it announces it regionally or something like that. Maybe you could set up if more than 5 people enter at the same time, announce it. Just something interesting like that, or have it linked to chat boxes.
Yeah, if it's about information, I really have no problem about it. And having more information and more inter-channel and more automated tools, yeah, I'm great. I don't like the idea about pulsing anti-cloak beam. I'm for an active player hunting down cloakers, and I don't understand why CCP does not want to create either a class of ship or a module or whatever that lets you be able to scan down and find out cloakers and just decloak it or just shoot it. What is the issue with that? It exists in many other games. You have a cloaker and you have the anti-cloaker. Whether that anti-cloaker is also cloaked or not, it depends on the games, but it's a game mechanic. You can cloak, but you can find out the people that are cloaked.
Well, I think that's the point of the pulse, though, is the anti-cloak. That is the solution for that.
Yeah, but that's just an item, and you're gonna put it. Okay, it's gonna pulse every 5 minutes, or you're gonna pulse every 30 minutes, and it's gonna be system wide. No, I want to. Who is that guy in local? I'm gonna find him. I'm gonna look for him, and if he's cloaked, I'm gonna find him even cloaked, and I'm gonna uncloak him. So I'm gonna hunt him out of a system because he cannot stay as long as I'm hunting him. It's not simply I press a button. Okay, he's uncloaked, whatever, and.
But just because he's uncloaked, though, you have to scan him down. You have to. It's not as simple as this. Once he's uncloaked, he's there. He's not going to show up. You got to search for him. You got to do the same amount of searching as if that wasn't involved and you had to try and find him. Trust me, it's very easy as a person it's a morale officer just to cloak up and not ever be around the computer. You can search and search and search, and no one's going to ever find you.
Yeah, but that's why I want an active role and ship which is able to detect and find out people that are cloaked.
Well, what if your through your observatory array you could start getting you could start working through it could be like a boost for your probes to find the zone he's in, and then through the second deployable, you could start talking about, all right, well, in a 10K radius now, I can start putting out anti-cloak fields or something. It might maybe over time it grows bigger and you can't really outrun it.
Yeah, and that I would perfectly agree. Having that observatory array, finding out the grid on which it is, and after that you go there and you have another deployable or another module to find out the person which is on grid. I'm perfectly okay because it's an active player hunting down another player, whether that other player is active or not.
All right, and then the piece that everybody's drooling over, of course, is the gates. And I'm hoping that we start talking about some of the interoperability between some of these structures, because we just talked about how if you had if you could tie your observational utilities to your gates and have some sort of interesting play intel channels, that would be a great way to do it. Now, gates have always been this great thing that, like, it's a super hype thing, and I'm always I'm always cheering there with Siegel or Nullarbor when they talk about it, and then I think about it and I go, oh wait, where do you actually implement these? And are these replacements for the Concord gates so that we still get the same connections, we just have them maintained by players? Or is this a way to redraw the map in your own vision so that it's a replacement for jump drive highways and those kind of things? And as much as a lot of these things, you can talk about them making sense in nullsec. You can talk about well, okay, let's go through our region, replace all of our gates as vanilla, and then let's add our own bridge highway. That comes with whatever it comes with. But then when you start talking about, well, let's bring these to low sec or let's bring these to high sec, people start going, okay, well, so let's get a thing that gets me around Uedama. Even if it's a tollway, that's who you can only have like 1 or 2 or 3 tollways before there is literally zero money in it, and therefore it breaks the opportunity to suicide gank because there's a risk to actually go from Jita to Dodixie or Jita to Amar. Those are not null risks. Those do have an amount of risk, and there's a whole play style around it. The bringing gates anywhere but nullsec starts to really erode the way the game works.
And it's going to redraw. It would redraw the map of ISEC if you can avoid pockets of low sec and jump one system further. It would open up large swaths of the game. It would be a real game changer. If it's just to change jump bridges and make it some permanent structure, some permanent highways between the main systems, okay, whatever. Sure, not. I have no problem. If it's to stabilize a wormhole between 2 systems, okay, sure. I'm a bit more annoyed about that. But it's just, I hope they don't replace the gates, the existing gates, with that. Because we would end up with gate guns at every single gate in your empire. Having gate guns at your jump bridge is no problem. Having gate guns at every single gate that you have in your empire, in your nullsec empire, that means you're gonna warp scram every ship that comes in and just shoot it. It's not good gameplay.
Yeah, and again, I can come up with an amount of mechanics that make it interesting for nullsec. So when we were talking about as intelligence operations, where maybe you talk about the scale of gates have the different defensive abilities. So you could say, okay, well, if you want to get into our headquarters constellation, well, we're going to make sure that you have to think real long and hard about that, or you have to make sure you're ready to deal with that castle wall, as it were. But again, it comes down to so many points where I'm like, the vision is that all of these structures will be everywhere. There isn't a null only structure. There isn't a high sec only structure. All of the structures are supposed to be in all of the spaces from everything they've talked about, and giving players access to jump equipment in high sec and low sec really starts to break things. Like, if we had a highway, if we could go make our own jump drive for Aideron and get between Fliet and Animalia with our own gate system, we would pay out the nose to have that so that we could just appear there and skip the loop and make roaming faster. Like, that would be $1 billion ISK a month. Sure, just we'll charge it in taxes or something. We'll figure out how to pay for that, but we'll get it. But that completely breaks down the map, and it then means that when you're chasing us, oh well, we have our secret pirate gate, and only we can go through it. So it breaks a lot of gameplay without adding a ton of value to both sides of the equation.
But still, as you were talking about the pirate gates, I would love to have the pirates from lowsec be able to use the pirate gates. If you have high faction status with pirate factions, why can't you use the pirate gates? I would love it. It should be so great. That's the way things do.
See, I have no issue with. You were saying that you think it breaks it down. I have no issue with that. Think about jump bridges. Jump bridges do the same thing. Why can't people in lowsec have the same setup? I really would love that idea that, okay, if you going back to your Aideron example, okay, if we go to Aideron, we know we can't go through Ninamelia because we know that they'll just be on top of us when they go. So it just turns into a chess match, and I don't see anything inherently wrong with that, because just the same as it happens in nullsec, if you're chasing down a group and you know that they're funneling in one way, well, jump bridge, now we're right on top of them.
Yeah, I mean, it makes a little bit more sense in nullsec because it ends up being that you've built a highway across an amount of space, and especially with the new jump fatigue changes, they're not that great a highway. I love the first pass idea. I have this whole romantic idea about how it could work. I just can think of 5 extra ways it doesn't work. The next one was the administration hubs. I think this one actually might be one of the other early ones we see. If SOV hardware is expected to be a deployable more than a new deployable rather than an old deployable, we might see the small versions of these showing up first before we actually see real admin hubs show up. And this one actually had one of my favorite little let's think about it things with the sex status adjustment. That one of the problems of nullsec is that TrueSec is just a pain, right? You have good TrueSec and you have bad TrueSec, and the map is nowhere close to even. There are lots of great TrueSecs that are close to HighSec that like the CFC has in Veil, for instance, are all great TrueSecs, and they're within one jump drive from HighSec. Okay. But then you go look out at the drone regions, and they're all really awful TrueSecs, and it really drives the value of the space per player at the player level more so than the organizational level. And I love the idea of being able to turn the sex status through some sort of operation. I especially like the idea of maybe one day doing a faction warfare incursion into like Norvukaiken and screwing with the sec until it becomes a spot where we can raid it. Like, a cool vision. Again, the particulars are really going to make it or break it.
Yeah, because if you can adjust your sex status in nullsec, you're going to see everybody being -1. It's just because that's the only important thing. So I hope it doesn't move too much, because it's still one of the things that makes regions to be useful or useless. And one of the goals that from CCP is that you have good nullsec, you have bad nullsec, you have kind of a scale, and you want to go higher. So if you can change your sex status to -1, yeah, everybody's going to be good. You're going to get good rewards, good loots, good everything, which is not the goal. Having NPC agents, yeah, sure, that's okay. Why not? Get some PvE in nullsec. Why not? Having those NPC agents placed by players in low sec or in even high sec. Okay, that's an interesting dynamic. Why not? Because I would love. There's some pockets of high sec, some places in high sec which are really in corners that don't have good agents. They don't have anything interesting. So why not creating a player solution for that? You place your administration hub and you place your agents, and you can run from here. You don't have to be in the mainstream with normal corporations. You bring your corporations. Here, I give you offices, I give you stuff to do, and you give me missions. Thanks.
Yeah, again, it comes down to your point of how do we actually scale the quality so you don't just turn it to 11 and never think about it again. So when it comes to adjusting TrueSec, I would love to see some sort of mechanic that you could move it maybe a point and a half in either direction to say, like, okay, well, if you wanted to make a buffer zone, for instance, you could make a bunch of this could be a way to burn the space around your headquarters, and as a way to improve your headquarters, you could maybe move the TrueSec down a point and a half through on like a exponential scale for effort and cost or activity, whatever it is. Like, moving it slightly. I like the idea of it. I don't want it. I don't want minus 1.0 everywhere. I want like, well, we have a minus 0.1, and if we work really hard and we all turn in our stuff, well, we can move it into a minus 2.5, for instance. But if I have maybe a minus 8, a minus 0.8, or a minus 0.9, well, just like in the standing system, you have to. It's so much more effort to add that extra point, that last point to the top or the bottom. I want something like that, where okay, well, we can move it 1/10 of a point from 0.9. Well, why bother? But from a 0.1, well, maybe we can move it to 0.2.
And it becomes extremely important for those high-sec or low-sec systems, which are around 0.49, 0.51. If you can move it slightly, you could have high-sec systems become low-sec, low-sec system become high-sec. That would be very weird.
Oh, well, and the ones that you'd worry most about are the Uadamas, the Niarjas of the world, and
Niarja would be low-sec on day one.
Yeah, and that really breaks the game again. It's something that we really. I'm more than happy to, for instance, have a small deployable structure that reduces Concord response time. That might be a thing for high-sec, but globally changing Uadama to a low-sec is just bad. That's it's going to break logistics chains, and it's going to make a lot of the people. It's going to make a lot of the wrong players' lives hard. And then the last deployable on the thing are the advertisement centers, and I love the idea of player billboards and player made monuments. I worry about time to penis that we know from letting players make their own things. I am glad that one of the things on their to-do list is to get rid of the ad buoy as a way to get rid of the can clutter of join my corp and that stuff that's around every friggin' gate. So if we've got no more things to share about the structures, let's go ahead and wrap up the show. We're going to go through market reactions that we've seen so far during the show. As always, we're going to start with Plex. I'm a little surprised it turned around back to 800. Looks like we had a bunch of hype during the first day, and then the lack of news really killed the hype.
Yeah, nothing changes. It's just usual variation about availability, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I'm sure that when I pull the full week stats that we won't see anything important.
If there was one thing about the Plex perhaps that got an effect is that they had a promotion about the 12 months, and you were getting something if you're buying 12 months of not of Plex but of account. I remember something about that.
Oh yeah, and there was a GMG. No, there was a Humble Bundle also right before FanFest that may have killed a little bit of the demand for Plex, but it was all for actual account time rather than the Plex, which I think are, yeah, we rather track those than the actual. We can't track the game time. Moving on to minerals, I thought as we talked last time, Megasite and Zydrine took big jumps, but the speculative bubble around Megasite popped pretty quickly, and we're at a far more reasonable, what is that, 2%, 5%?
Yeah, for Megasite is not. If Zydrine is still up, Megasite is going down to normal levels. We're going to see. There was a jump in Pyrite today, which is kind of weird. Perhaps it's just market. It happens.
Yeah, we've been seeing those spikes in Pyrite. Like, I don't know who's causing those. They've been rather periodic lately. I think that the sustained spike of Zydrine has to do with the fact that I think coming into this it was undervalued anyway, and anything that helps boost the price, lower the demand, lower the supply, was going to do a lot more to Zydrine than Megasite. Megasite was in a far more stable falling pattern. Data cores, this graph is a bit of a mess. Since they were talking about being able to make your own, I was hoping that we'd see some sort of action, but everything looks like they're operating as normal. None of the prices are particularly high, and none of the spreads are particularly wide. So I was wondering if we'd see anything, but it's far too early until we actually see a plan for data core stuff for this to actually move.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to move as long as we don't know how it's going to be mined from the new system. Even if the mechanical engineering went up, but that's one of those variations that happen because you need it for a lot of things, and from time to time you have people buying a crap load of them and buying everything on the market. So I'm pretty sure that spike is going to disappear as the Graviton one is disappearing.
Yeah, and that spike isn't even that high. It's like 68,000, and unless mechanical engineering magically became 100,000 a core, it wouldn't really be news. Moving on to the ship skins, I'm only going to do the frigates tonight. We talked about some of the ship skins spiking, and then we talked about in the last show how those spikes were expected to be kind of fake because people only ever need one to get the new system to work. And we're seeing a lot of those spikes dissipate already. Some of them haven't, but I think that might be a function of volume. We'll look at them closer during the weekly show.
I don't think the skin are not going to go that up or down or whatever. It really depends what price we want to put on the 108. We're talking about 22 skins. There's 22 skins in the game right now, and they're going to add 108. So unless you want to collect 130 and catch them all, you're not really going to care about it.
Yeah, and it really depends where they peg the prices. That if we talk about a $2 skin at 130 skins, I think we're going to see some outrage when you say, well, I have to spend 200 to get them all. I'm hoping that we see a spread from like, oh well, okay, the Quaff ones, for instance, are going to be special editions. Those are like 3 or 4, but then maybe the Interbus one is 50 cents, and see a real spectrum from almost nothing to maybe I won't miss that $5.
Yeah, because the prices we had in the presentation were 40 arms, 60 arms, and it's not going to be that price, clearly, because it's way too cheap.
Moving on to PI, I was hoping that we'd see more PI moving, but until we actually get the new recipes for the upgrades and some more of the SOV news comes out, I'm with you, Bhock, that you said last time that these are not going to move. This is a spot I would put a bet in if you do want to try and win big, if you want to look real smug. I think this high-end PI is going to be a place to look, but I have no idea which one to tell you to buy, how much of it to buy, and whether you will win or lose. It's a gamble. It honestly is a gamble.
And it's mostly about how expensive it's going to be and what we're going to do for the spread of building those new structures. If it's mostly going to be minerals with a few PI, or if it's going to be a lot of PI with a few minerals, and what spread of minerals. It's just, there's so much things which are completely unknown that nobody's speculating about it. And PI, that's very easy to switch your PI within 2 or 3 weeks. You're just producing the thing that you need. So we'll be good and nothing's going to change. We're going to have a spike when we finally know the composition, because people are going to stock to get ready to produce as much as possible. But I wouldn't bet any ISK on it.
Yeah, the gamble right now is that if you buy in today, the gamble is that the rising tide will rise all boats, and that's gambling that we see the SOV stuff come out with the build information in, let's say, April, and we see perhaps the first deployable structures in the roadmap start to show up as a thing to work on. And it's if you've always wanted to be that smug bastard who's been right about some big thing and make your fortune, this is the place I would be watching to bet. But it's gonna do like recons when they announced the recons were changing, that you have to be bought in before the dev blog goes out, because the action is completed in minutes.
Yeah, and if you talk about the rigs for capital ships and all to lose money for the jump freighters.
So I'll keep tracking these on the weekly show, and we'll see where it goes. The last one I keep coming back to because this is my personal betting baby, is the advanced materials. I keep hoping that as the announcements come out, that we'll see more destruction in nullsec, and that will drive more Tech 2 consumption, which will take a lot of these items out of the basement they've been in for the last 2 months. And I keep not seeing that, and it's starting to piss me off.
And the big problem with all those materials is that we don't know if they're going to be used for all those structures. Because if you need moon goo to produce moon goo, okay, why not? But it's going to drive need for it. The Tech 2 need and the Tech 2 current production, everything has been sorted and out. Unless they change completely the way POS is and moon goo is done, which would shake up the market and all the stocks. There's way too much stock right now to make any big move. I don't think it's going to go up. I don't think it's going to go down. It's going to stay supply and demand, and from the spikes of the various wars, which is not that much because there's so much stock.
Well, and the hope is not so much that we'll see a big reset. It's that we'll see a turn of the trend tide. That for the last few months we've been seeing this exponential decay down to basically bargain basement, and if some decent null fights start to grind against each other, we might start seeing that ease back up off the bottom floor and start heading towards, the first regular equilibrium. So that's my hope. I'm not sitting here thinking I'm going to get magically rich because we're going to see a reset of like 10%. I'm hoping that we just see a reversal of the downward trend to show that we're actually consuming more of these Tech 2 items and working through some of the backlog.
And perhaps we'll see a reset of 25% if it's impossible to keep SOV and you're going to have to pay 25% extra to fuel your POS. In that case, those materials will go up 25%, just keeping your cost back to the customer. But I don't think it's going to happen, and we'll see.
So with our time almost up, I'm going to go ahead and end the show. I want to thank our guests, Bhock and Random Boy 50. If you guys have any closing thoughts, go ahead and...
No, I'm very curious about all the VR stuff and it's Project Legend. I was sad to have no news about Project Legend. I wanted to see an integration. It doesn't seem that there's going to be an integration with Valkyrie at the beginning. It's going to be a second step. And I hope it's going to be a very close and soon second step, not something they're going to do in 5 years, because that would kill Valkyrie. Valkyrie will not live on its hype for 5 years if it's not integrated with Project Legion and Eve.
Yeah, I agree. And I was sort of sad to see nothing from Project Legion. It makes me think that we might see another World of Darkness here.
Right. That's kind of how I read into it, too. I was almost worried that are we about to get another Vaporware again?
Which I don't understand, because if you take Star Citizen has a dogfight, they have a combat ground, or the station ground internally, and the ship fight. So basically they have all the elements that CCP wants to put in Eve and around Eve. So, and that's something that people want to do. We want to go from a space shooter to ground shooter. And that's kind of bad if we lose Project Legion.
Well, yeah, and especially it being a more serviceable PC title rather than PS3 exclusive, because that even if Dust was outrageously successful, the scale of people who are willing to put the hours in for an MMO on a console are just dwarfed by the ability to do MMO work on a PC from that kind of support. So there's a lot of good news that makes me enthusiastic that Legion is not completely vaporware, especially lately. The Unreal Engine announcements talking about releasing a lot of their engine tools for free and clearing up a lot of licensed stuff that maybe if they have the willpower or they can get angel investor that we might see this come out of the vaporware stage. But no news is bad news in this case.
Yeah, because they say, oh, we only give news about things that we are sure on. And they basically gave us Fanfest about the next 6 months. I would love to have a grand vision update, something which is expect that kind of ideas for the next 2 years. Even if it's not very precise, just give us some clues. Say us that Project Legion is still in the works and we have people working on it. And we still have a vision about it, not simply brush it and say, oh, I don't want to give you any news. Okay, bad.
The fact that Hilmar had nothing to say in the Day 3 keynote was a little depressing.
Yeah, it really ended on and we're done. Like it just, there was no pizzazz to it. I was kind of hopeful-esque, oh, one more thing kind of deal. And instead we got, all right, let's go party. Which, I mean, hey, if you're Fanfest, great. But for everyone else in the EVE community, it's just kind of like, wow, everything really was done on day one.
Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the show. If you want to get in touch with us, the show is at Eve Prosper on Twitch and on YouTube and on Twitter and on the blog. You can email the show at prospermarketshow@gmail.com. Guests, how would you like people to reach out to you?
Usually it's on Twitter at Bhock Collective.
Yep, you just hit me up in game, randomboy50.
You can shoot randomboy50 in game.
Yeah, either one.
We'll pay for his corpse. So thanks again, guys, for helping me do this panel. Thanks for everyone who tuned in. I will try to get this out onto YouTube soon. We should be having this, should be able to consume all of this. And as a hype thing here at the end, I want to tell everyone that we have 2 interviews in the pipeline, one from Dr. Iyo, who used to be the CCP economist, and one from CCP Quant, which I'll be working on distributing probably on Monday. So make sure you're on the Twitter. So that'll be where we're releasing that in the short term. So thanks again for tuning in. Thank you again for my guests, and we will be back again on Friday at 0200 our normal time to talk about the weekly market stuff. Thanks again.
And blow up stuff.